Cyberpunk has no shortage of secret quests and missable interactions that if you wait for too long or don't pay attention to the right details, you might never even know they exist. Today we'll take a look at just 8 such quests. There's obviously way more in the game, but these were just some of my favorites that I also recommend doing. But it's time to hit pause and get ready for something truly special this holiday season with Prime Gaming, which is completely free with your Amazon Prime membership. Also a big thanks to the company for sponsoring today's video. With Prime Gaming you can get free awesome drops every single month, as well as exclusive in-game rewards for many of your favorite titles. Starting December 27th, there's loads of free new drops to choose from, including Dishonored and a variety of SNK games. All you have to do is to click on your favorite title, link the platform required over there, and then it's pretty much yours to play. Also, many more mobile games to choose from, including Candy Crush and Farm Heroes, with loads of free rewards to claim during this very campaign. I even got an awesome armor bundle in Warframe, among many others that I really love. So definitely check out Prime Gaming starting December 27th using my links below. It's also a nice way to support your favorite streamer with a free Twitch sub, and I'll give another big thanks to the team for sponsoring this video. Now, the very first missable quest is Prophet's Song that you actually get from Gary the Prophet just outside Misty's shop. The only problem is that it doesn't start immediately, but rather requires you to engage in conversations with him on 5 different occasions. Each time he's going to ramble about all sorts of conspiracy theories, which ironically do have some sort of truth behind them. He correctly predicts that Saburo Arasaka isn't in actuality dead, though his reasoning is that he's some kind of blood-sucking vampire. He also mentions how implants are the downfall of humanity and how they are used to watch and control every aspect of human life, all while he himself appears to feature Kiroshi implants when accepting donations. And if you engage in these conversations, even more so donate to his cause, eventually he'll let you know of a secret meeting between some alleged reptilians and space necromancers at the nearby abandoned factory in Kabuki. Of course, not before first offending a group of passing nomads by calling them werewolves for some reason. Depending how you handle this altercation will also influence the remaining quest. If you tell them to jump him, or even more so if you ignore them, obviously they'll just one-shot poor old Gary and the mission ends on the spot. However, if you choose to intervene, you'll have to fight them right away as they'll become hostile towards you. But there's a third peaceful option. This only triggers if you're playing on the Nomad life path or if you finish the Queen of the Highway quest first, which is totally worth checking. If you successfully defend him from his attackers, this is when he'll reveal the location to that secret meeting. And around this time is when you'll start thinking, just as how Johnny does too, if this guy isn't a complete waste of time or not. Shockingly though, he is right and there is indeed a secret meeting, but instead of space technomancers and reptilians, we have the Maelstrom gang and 2 Arasaka agents making some kind of deal for a special chip. This is even more odd if you consider the dialogue that they have between each other, strange riddles and even Latin being used at some point, all conversations that you can miss if you attack them too soon. Again, there's a couple of options to approach this. The easiest and most immediate is obviously by just throwing a couple of grenades in the middle of the group, which is going to clear them right away. But you can also trigger a chase scene if the 2 Arasaka agents leave with the chip. Disappointingly though, this won't go too far and instead they will just circle around the nearby Kabuki market, but at least it makes them easy targets to pick off. Once you do grab the chip, it's time to go back to Gary, only to find out that he's gone and replaced by one of his only disciples. Upon inquiring the disciple, she'll tell you that Gary was in fact kidnapped by some corpos with blue eyes and black suits before being thrown in the back of a flying AV. If you later decide to visit the columbarium, there's even a niche dedicated to him that says he knew too much, so they dealt with him, likely indicating that Gary is unfortunately dead. You can also inquire about the chip if you donated enough to Gary or if you pay enough to the disciple, though she's not going to be of much help. Even more so, you can crack the data on the chip and reveal this pretty odd message that if you combine the first letters of each word, they will form a new sentence that says Project Oracle Command Execute Plans. I think this is one of the better done quests in the game, a lot of mystery behind it, and obviously a tie-in to the Paralysis questline and some of the other overarching conspiracies with Mr. Blue Eyes, of course, while still keeping us very much in the dark in true CDPR fashion. Coming up to number 2, the next one is Kold Mirage, a completely missable quest if you don't get a call from a certain character after the mission called Ghost Town, or even more so if you don't interact with a certain object. So one way to ensure that this quest triggers is to read the notice of expiration data shard found in the same building north side where you get the gig called Many Ways to Skin a Cat. That or by going directly to the landfill just outside of the city and in the same location where you will find Dexter Deshawn's lifeless body after chapter 2. Make sure that you also grab the iconic Plan B from him and then go ahead and open up this freezer right behind his body. Inside you will find the body of none other than Raged Bartmoss, who's been dead cold for at least 50 years. From here, it's pretty straightforward. You'll just have to grab this cyber deck that he has and then head over back to Afterlife and talk to Nyx. For me and many other players out there, this quest never even triggers if you did not talk to Nyx during that Ghost Town mission where you first have to meet Rogue in the Afterlife. So make sure you do that, but if you missed it, you can always go back and grab the data shard I was talking about. Once you do give him the cyber deck, he'll tell you Bartmoss was likely killed by the Netwatch, but offers to decrypt the data for you. During the sequence, something goes wrong and Nyx gets infected by remaining malware. Depending on what you choose to do next will slightly change the outcome. So if you stop the power by interacting with the panel near the door, then Nyx is saved, and he's also going to tell you that the data on the shard is now gone. But if you, on the other hand, choose to breach the cyber deck yourself using the computer in front of you, he's going to be able to save some of the files and also provide 6 quick hacks, including rare and even epic ones. And if you have at least 5 points into intelligence, you can even access his selection of quick hacks from the same menu to buy them and maybe create a build right away without much hassle. At number 3, the next one is Spellbound, and the reason this quest is missable is because it's kinda dependent on first completing Kold Mirage, which itself is also missable. So if you do complete that first, if you wait a bit of time, Nyx will eventually call you sometimes later about purchasing the spell book for him from a character named Reno at the restaurant back in Charter Hill. Once you do reach the bar area, there's a few outcomes depending on your choices and if you have the corporal life path or not. So one of the first options is to just follow Nyx's advice and pay the 7,300 Addis fee to Rano to get the coordinates to the nearby spellbook. But as I've said, if you play on the corporal life path, the fee is only going to be 1,800 instead. On the other hand, you can also choose to attack Rano and kill them, though in this case, if you don't have enough intelligence, you can get soft locked in the mission because there's no way for you to find the password to her laptop, and even more so, there's no information online about it. So the only way out of this second situation is by having at least 4 points in intelligence, which is going to give you the possibility to hack directly into the laptop. This is likely going to also be the most rewarding option, as you don't get to spend any of your cash, but also get a lot of epic and legendary quick hack components if you manage to complete all of the puzzles. Whichever route you pick, the spellbook location will be at the nearby launch area hidden inside this carry-on bag. Taking it to Nyx will finish the mission, but you can increase the cash reward even more if you have at least 10 points into intelligence and tell him that, yeah, the book is worth way more. Case in which is going to give you about 16,000 eddies instead of the usual 12,000. Good to note is that you can actually hack into the spellbook before giving it in, which will reveal some interesting facts about what happened following Bartmoss' data crash that led to the destruction of the old net, and also his connection to Spider Murphy, which is totally worth checking out. But moving on to number 4, the next quest is Happy to Gather, back at your apartment building, which isn't so much missable as its best outcome is if you wait for too long. This involves your downstairs neighbor named Barry that suffers a lot following the recent death of his best friend. So much so in fact that at the start of Act 2, a couple of his colleagues at the NCPD called Petrova and Mendes can be seen knocking at his door and begging him to come out. At first, he doesn't want to talk to anyone, and even these attempts prove to be in vain, though he does tell you to come back sometimes later. If you do wait a few hours and then drop by, he will eventually open up the door and even let you in, where you can find out more about his situation. Here's the problem though, at no point does the game let you know that the major yellow dialogue options, if you only focus on them, you're pretty much locking yourself into the bad ending, which pretty much results with Barry ending his own life and you getting up to this scene with two of his colleagues, the same ones, crying their eyes out because, well, you can pretty much see the outcome. And the same happens if you wait too long after having your first discussion with him and not solving his issue. So to save him and get a good outcome, you will want to make sure you always pick the blue dialogue options first, inquire about his friend Andrew, and just go through all of these blue ones until you completely exhaust them before picking the yellow dialogue options. Because this is going to further open up an optional quest objective where you can go ahead and visit Andrew's niche back at the Columbarium and find out more about him. This in turn will also reveal who Andrew really is and why Barry couldn't even rely on his friends at the NCPD in his most vulnerable moments. I definitely recommend also picking the options in which V is most shocked, as Johnny will also provide more context to Barry's mental state. This also lets you confront the two officers back at the Mega Building, who you can now inform about Andrew's true identity and why Barry is so depressed. As sad as it sounds, this will ensure that Barry stays alive at the end of the quest and Mendes decides to open up more and talk to his friend from this point on. But probably the least obvious missable quest has to be the Highwayman, also coming up to number 5. This is otherwise completely unmarked and you can only begin this if you stumble upon the garage at the foot of the dam back in Rancho Coronado. Inside, Johnny will comment on the scrapped bike, but even that won't start the quest. Instead, you have to interact with the laptop on the opposite side of it. Only then does the mission start and you'll notice a strange message from someone named James, as well as a picture between what's likely him and some girl. Upon a closer inspection, you'll find out the location this was taken in is very close to Japantown West Waypoint. And if you head over there in the open space area near the 24/7 store, you'll also notice James is actually still there, casually sitting on the bench all by himself. If you decide to visit him first before fighting the girl, he'll tell you she ran into some trouble with the tiger claws before she stole one of their bikes. If you follow the quest info, eventually you're also going to be led to this location near the drop point in the Glen area, where the scanners will reveal some of the blood trails still remaining and leading to a nearby alleyway. Unfortunately, following them brings you to a dumpster behind of which you'll find the lifeless body of Josie, the same girl from the draft message and the same one from the picture. You will also find a draft message next to her body that reads that it was James, in fact, the one who set her up by telling the tiger claws where she was hiding, but it also contains info on where she actually hid the bike. From this point on, how you choose to finish the quest is your own option. I personally always pick the second one to confront James and make him hostile so that I can enact some revenge on behalf of Josie. He doesn't drop anything noteworthy, but you can, just head over back to the All Foods plant, like how the draft message mentions, where you can input the code 0214 to open up and grab the sweet new Tiger Claws bike. This is, by the way, the same code you see in the graffiti marked on the bench where you found James for the first time. Pretty sweet ride nonetheless, but a sad story. Coming up to number 6, we have Love Rollercoaster, and while the mission technically will display on the map if you wait for too long or if you finish double life after saving Evelyn Parker, it will completely disappear, or at the least some aspects of it will. Because if you drop by the Imperial Mall in Pacifica and go behind it in Chapter 2 before even completing double life, you'll also find a group of locals having some fun by the roller coaster as they're trying to fix the ride. Choosing to help them will also give V the chance to repair the ride himself, which also opens up arguably one of the most wholesome moments in the game with Johnny Silverhand, and also one of the coolest and most fun rides, no doubt, in the entire game. The thing is, if you choose to come much later, these NPCs will be no longer there, but you can still take part in the ride and fix it and have the same moment with Johnny. As a matter of fact, once you do fix the ride, you can come back at any point and just have fun with it. I just wanted to let you guys know that the NPCs won't be in the same area any longer if you wait for too long after double life. But speaking of quests that can disappear, coming up to number 7, there is a surprising number of missions that you can completely miss if you progress too much in Panem's questline. One of the first is called I'll Fly Away, right after finishing Riders on the Storm, where you have to save Sol. If you stick around the Nomad camp for a bit longer, you can head over to these nearby rock formations and have a chat with Mitch, whose quest marker wouldn't even display otherwise if you did not talk to him first. He'll ask you for a favor in helping him with Scorpion's funeral, who unfortunately met his demise a couple of missions back, but you should totally agree to help him. This will let you follow him to the nearby collapsed bridge where Mitch reveals Scorpion's body in the back of the car he just drove, mentioning that it was Scorpion's last wish to go out with a bang, so you do have to help him. The whole interaction is pretty funny as it is sad, so you do have to help him set the car on fire and then send it flying over the edge in the canyon below. If you stick around for a bit longer and talk to Mitch even more, he's going to reveal Scorpion's secret charm, which is basically this action figure that you can display back at V's apartment, as well as the Stinger iconic knife. Especially the knife is going to be one of the best in the game. It makes it so that hits can poison enemies, and attacks against poison enemies can also trigger bleeding, so you can basically use this on a very strong dot build that uses both bleeds as well as poison effects, so 100% worth it. And finally, this brings us to one more missable quest much later in the game called Fortunate Son. This only spawns if you complete Queen of the Highway, Panem's last mission, and move into the new Nomad camp up north. Failing to help her or refusing to help her during that quest chain will not get you the new camp, and as a result, you cannot complete this mission. But if you do, going back, you'll hear a conversation between two nomads regarding a character named Jake who needs a special kidney implant ASAP, otherwise he won't make it. During this conversation, V learns that Dakota Smith already fixed them up with an implant. You just need to pick it from the hospital in Little China in the first place. So what you have to do is to head over right away, otherwise if you wait for too long, this is another way to fail the mission. But once you are there, an employee will be waiting with the implant. You will just realize that something isn't right about him. So as you pick up the box, police suddenly show up and you have no choice but to defend yourself. From this point on, the game gives you a few options that you might not even be aware there's some serious consequences for. You can choose to take revenge on the employee for the betrayal or just let him live and go back to the camp right away. Once you do reach the camp with the implant, the nomads will thank you and tell you to come some back later after a few hours. Except that once you do come back, you find out that Jake is instead dead and the implant still didn't save his life. That's because there's one aspect crucial to the mission that you did not know, which is the fact that the implant was in fact spiked with a virus. The only way to find this out is if you have at least 10 points into intelligence, which is now going to provide you a separate dialogue where you can inquire the hospital employee if the implant has been tampered with. Case in which is going to admit to the fact and even offer to provide a second chip to replace the one that has been spiked with the virus. Alternatively, if you don't have enough intelligence, you can wait for like 30 seconds and the employee will simply tell you eventually out of remorse that yes, that implant was in fact tampered with, and again will give you the same chip and the same outcome. So in both of these situations, if you know this information, you can go back at the camp and not only will you provide the implant, but also the knowledge that they have to switch out the chip with the non-virus one, which at the end of the quest will save Jake's life and he will even appear in one of the endings with the Aldecaldos, so again, totally worth it. But yeah, that's pretty much it with them. If you like these types of videos, totally let me know down below. There's definitely a lot more missions like these. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video.